The story of the Antikythera Mechanism starts with a shipwreck. This wasn't just any shipwreck. It was found by sponge divers. This happened in the year 1900. They were off the coast of a small Greek island called Antikythera. The divers were doing their usual job. They were looking for sponges on the seabed. One day, one of them, Elias Stadiatis, went down deep. He found something amazing. He saw a pile of dead bodies on the seafloor. He quickly came back up. He was scared. He told the boat captain Demetrios Kondos what he saw. The captain thought Stadiatis was seeing things, but Stadiatis insisted. So, Kondos went down himself. What Stadiatis saw weren't bodies. They were marble statues, they were ancient. This was a huge find. The divers then worked for months to bring things up. They found many statues. Some were bronze, some were marble. They also found pottery and other artifacts. It was like a treasure chest from another time. The ship had sunk around 60 BC. It was carrying luxury goods. These were likely on their way to Rome. Among all these amazing things, something else was found. It was a lump of corroded bronze. It didn't look like much at first. It was small. It was covered in sea grime. It was just another piece of junk to many people. But then it broke apart a bit. Inside, people could see gears. These weren't simple gears. They were very intricate. They had many teeth. This was super unusual for something from ancient times. People didn't think ancient Greeks made such complex machines. The lump was taken to the National Archaeological Museum in Athens. It sat there for a while. Nobody really knew what it was. It was strange. It was a mystery. They knew it was old. They knew it was bronze. But the gears were the weird part. What was this thing for? Why did it have gears like this? It looked like something from a clock. But clocks weren't invented until much, much later. So it couldn't be a clock. A man named Valerios Stias was an archaeologist. He was the first to really look at it closely. He saw the gears inside, he noticed the precision of them, he thought, this is something special. He wrote about it, but even he couldn't fully figure it out. The salt water had done a lot of damage. The bronze was fragile, many pieces were stuck together. It was hard to see everything clearly. It was hard to understand its full shape. For years it remained a puzzle. People guessed. Some said it was a kind of ancient clock. Others thought it might be a navigation tool. But no one had a complete picture. The technology seemed too advanced for its time. It didn't fit with what people knew about ancient Greece. It challenged what historians thought about ancient engineering. It was like finding a computer chip in a Roman ruin. It just didn't make sense to many. The real breakthrough came much later. It took new technology to really see inside the lump. In the 1950s, a man named Derek de Solla Price, a historian of science, started studying it again. He used X-ray technology. This let him see through the corrosion. He could see the gears more clearly. He could count the teeth. He could see how they connected. This was a big step. And then later still, even better X-ray machines were used. CT scans and 3D imaging became possible. These showed incredible detail. They revealed even more gears. They showed hidden inscriptions. These tools helped peel back the layers of time. They helped uncover the true nature of this strange object. The old lump of bronze was slowly giving up its secrets. It was becoming clear that this wasn't just any old artifact. It was something truly extraordinary. It was a machine, a very complex machine, and it was from ancient Greece. So, what did this strange device look like? When it was new, it was housed in a wooden box. That box was probably about the size of a shoebox. Maybe a little bigger. The wood is long gone now. It rotted away in the sea. But the bronze gears and plates survived. They were the working parts. The mechanism itself was made of bronze. It had many gears. We're talking about dozens of them. They were very small. Some were only a few millimeters across. Others were bigger. They were all connected. They fit together very precisely. It was like a very intricate clockwork. But it wasn't for telling time in the way we think of it today. On the front of the box, there was a main dial. This dial showed the zodiac. It also showed a solar calendar. It had pointers. One pointer showed the position of the sun. Another pointer showed the position of the moon. As you turned a small hand crank on the side, these pointers would move. They moved across the dial. They showed where the sun and moon were in the sky. But it was more complex than that. The moon pointer didn't just move around. It also changed its speed, and it changed its phase. A small ball on the moon pointer would rotate. One half was dark, the other half was light. And it showed the current phase of the moon, like a little moon in miniature. This was very clever. It meant the machine could show if the moon was full or new or a crescent. On the back of the box, there were two more big dials. These dials were spiral-shaped. They looked like a coil. One dial was for the Saros cycle. This cycle is very important for predicting eclipses. It tracks when eclipses are likely to happen again. It's about 18 years long. The other back dial was for the Metonic cycle. This cycle helps align the lunar calendar with the solar year. It's about 19 years long. It also had pointers. These pointers moved along the spiral paths. They showed the current year in these cycles. There were also smaller dials. These showed other things, like the Callippic cycle. That was another calendar cycle, and a dial for the Olympic Games. Yes, it could even track the 4-year cycle of the ancient Olympic Games. It was like a multi-purpose calculator. The key to how it worked was the gearing system. It was all about ratios. The ancient Greeks understood how gears could multiply or divide motion. You turn one gear, it turns another. That second gear might have twice as many teeth, so it turns half as fast. Or it might have half as many teeth, so it turns twice as fast. By linking many gears together, you can create very complex movements. The Antikythera Mechanism used these gear ratios to model the movements of celestial bodies. For example, the moon's movement isn't simple. It speeds up and slows down. It also moves in an ellipse, not a perfect circle. The mechanism had a special set of gears. These gears simulated this uneven motion. It's called an epicyclic gearing system. This was incredibly advanced for the time. It showed a deep understanding of astronomy and mechanical engineering, so you would turn the crank. This crank was connected to a main gear. That main gear would then drive all the other gears. Each gear was carefully chosen, its number of teeth, its connection to other gears. All of this was designed to reproduce the known astronomical cycles. It was like a mechanical computer. You put in the input turning the crank, and it gave you the output, the positions of the sun, moon, and other cycles. It didn't use electricity, it didn't use batteries, it just used pure mechanical power. It was brilliant. It was a marvel of ancient engineering. It showed that the Greeks had the knowledge to build incredibly complex machines. It wasn't just simple tools. This was something on a whole different level. It was truly an Astro-Calculator. It calculated things about the sky. This machine, this Antikythera Mechanism, was more than just a cool gadget. It had very specific jobs. Its main purpose was to track and predict astronomical events. Think of it as an ancient calculator, but instead of adding numbers, it calculated the positions of the stars and planets. One of its big jobs was predicting eclipses. Eclipses, like when the moon blocks the sun or the earth blocks the moon, were important back then. They could be seen as signs or omens, so knowing when they would happen was a big deal. The Saros dial on the back was for this. The Saros cycle is roughly 18 years and 11 days. After this time, a similar pattern of eclipses repeats. The mechanism could show where you were in that cycle. It could tell you when to expect the next eclipse. It also tracked the movements of the sun and moon very accurately. The front dial showed their positions in the zodiac. It showed the date on a solar calendar. This was useful for farming, it was useful for religious festivals, it was useful for everyday life. Knowing the time of year and the phase of the moon was important for many things in ancient Greece. And it kept track of the Metonic cycle. This was a calendar cycle. It helped reconcile the lunar calendar with the solar year. The lunar calendars, based on the moon's phases, are common, but they don't quite match the solar year. The Metonic cycle, which is 19 years long, provided a way to keep them in sync. After 19 years, the phases of the moon fall on the same days of the solar year. The mechanism showed where you were in this cycle. There was also a Callippic cycle dial. This was a refinement of the Metonic cycle. It was a 76-year cycle. It made the calendar even more accurate. It showed how much the Greeks valued precision in their timekeeping and astronomical calculations. But it wasn't just for predicting celestial events. It had a dial for the Olympic Games. This is pretty amazing. It would tick off the years until the next Olympic Games, the Pan-Hellenic Games cycle. This included the Olympics. It showed that even practical, social events were integrated into this scientific tool. It was a device for understanding the cosmos and human activity within it. What about the planets? Recent research, using those advanced X-rays and computer models, has shown it could track more than just the sun and moon. It likely showed the positions of the 5 planets known to the ancients. That's Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. This is where it gets really complex. The paths of these planets in the sky are not simple. They sometimes seem to move backwards. This is called retrograde motion. To model this with gears is incredibly hard. But the evidence suggests the Antikythera Mechanism was designed to do just that. It used even more intricate gearing for these planetary movements. So, in short, it was an incredibly sophisticated astronomical clockwork. It was a tool for education, it was a tool for prediction, it was a tool for understanding the universe as they knew it. A teacher could use it to explain how the cosmos worked. An astrologer might use it for their predictions. A priest might use it to schedule religious festivals. It was a powerful instrument for anyone who needed to know the future movements of the sky. It showed a deep level of scientific understanding. The makers knew about the cycles of the sun and moon. They knew about eclipses, they knew about the complex movements of the planets. They also knew how to translate this knowledge into physical mechanics. They could design and build gears that accurately reproduced these movements. This was not simple. It required advanced math, it required skilled craftsmanship. It was truly a lost piece of technology. It was centuries ahead of its time. Nothing else like it is known to have existed for over 1,000 years after it was made. Who built this thing? That's a big question. We don't have a name carved on it, but we can guess. We can look at the time it was made. We can look at the knowledge it shows. The mechanism was built sometime between 200 BC and 60 BC. That's the best guess we have. This was a time of great scientific achievement in ancient Greece. Especially in places like Rhodes and Alexandria, these were centers of learning. They had brilliant minds working there. One name that often comes up is Archimedes. He was a genius. He lived in Syracuse, Sicily. He lived from about 287 to 212 BC. He was famous for his work in mathematics, physics, and engineering. He invented many things. He designed war machines. He worked on levers and pulleys. He was known to have built an orrery. An orrery is a mechanical model of the solar system. Cicero, a Roman writer, even mentioned an orrery made by Archimedes. He said it showed the movements of the sun, moon, and 5 planets. This sounds a lot like what the Antikythera Mechanism did. But Archimedes died before the mechanism was likely built, so he probably didn't build this one. But his ideas, his knowledge might have inspired it. Another strong candidate is Hipparchus. He was a famous astronomer. He lived on the island of Rhodes. He lived from about 190 to 120 BC. This puts him right in the time frame for the mechanism. Hipparchus was known for his very accurate observations of the sun and moon. He calculated their paths, he improved predictions for eclipses. The inscriptions found on the mechanism mention names that might be linked to Hipparchus's work. His precise astronomical models could have been the blueprint for the gears. Rhodes was also a place where clever mechanical devices were known to have been made. So, while we don't know the exact builder, it was likely someone from the school of thought of Archimedes or Hipparchus. It was someone with deep knowledge of astronomy, mathematics, and mechanical engineering. It wasn't a single person in a cave, it was probably a team, a master craftsman, an astronomer, a mathematician, all working together. Think about the skill needed to design these gears, to cut them out of bronze, to make them fit together perfectly. They didn't have modern tools, no electric saws, no computer-controlled machines. They used hand tools, chisels, files, lathes. They needed incredible precision. They needed steady hands. This was high-tech manufacturing for its time. The existence of this mechanism tells us a lot about ancient Greek science. It wasn't just about philosophy or ideas, it was about practical application. They built things. They used their knowledge to create useful instruments. They understood geometry. They understood ratios. They understood the complex movements of the sky. And it wasn't just a one-off thing. It was likely one of many. We only found one because it sank in a shipwreck. Other such devices might have existed. They just haven't survived. Maybe they were melted down for the bronze. Maybe they were lost to time. But this one gives us a window. It shows us what they were capable of. It pushes back the timeline of complex machinery by over 1,000 years. Before the Antikythera Mechanism, people thought such complex gear trains only appeared in the Middle Ages or Renaissance Europe. In clocks, for instance. But this device shows that the ancient Greeks were already there. They had the conceptual understanding, they had the engineering skill. It reshapes our understanding of ancient technology. And it shows they were far more advanced than many gave them credit for. They were truly pioneers of mechanical computation. The Antikythera Mechanism is more than just an old artifact. It's a statement, it's a loud message from the past. It tells us something very important about ancient people. It tells us they were not primitive. They were incredibly clever. They had deep scientific knowledge, they had amazing engineering skills. Its legacy is huge. It completely changed how we see ancient technology. For a long time, the idea was that ancient Greeks were great at philosophy and art, but not so much at practical, complex machines. The Antikythera Mechanism proves that idea wrong. It shows they were masters of mechanical engineering. They could build things that were centuries ahead of their time. Why don't we see more of them? That's a good question. Bronze was valuable. Many such machines, if they existed, might have been melted down over time. Wars, changes in power, changing priorities. Also, they were probably very rare and expensive to make. Only the very wealthy or powerful could afford such a device, so not many were made to begin with. The Antikythera ship was carrying luxury goods. This mechanism was probably a luxury item itself. It was perhaps a gift, or it was being shipped to a rich client. The discovery also highlights how much history we've lost. How many other incredible inventions have vanished? How many other brilliant minds have been forgotten? This mechanism is a tiny glimpse into a much richer, more complex past than we often imagine. It makes you wonder what else might be out there, hidden away. The ongoing research into the mechanism is also part of its legacy. Scientists and historians are still studying it today. They are using new technologies all the time. They are trying to build working replicas. They are trying to understand every single gear, every single inscription. Each new discovery adds another piece to the puzzle. It deepens our understanding. It shows us new aspects of ancient Greek thought. It tells us that scientific inquiry was alive and well, that the drive to understand the cosmos was strong, that the desire to predict and model the world was a powerful motivator. The Greeks weren't content to just look at the stars. They wanted to understand their movements. They wanted to predict them, and they found a way to do it using purely mechanical means. This device stands as a testament to human ingenuity. It reminds us that big leaps in technology can happen at any time. They don't always follow a smooth, steady path. Sometimes there are sudden bursts of innovation. And then sometimes that knowledge gets lost for a very long time. So the Antikythera Mechanism isn't just a lost Astro-Calculator that was found. It's a reminder of ancient brilliance, a reminder of what we can achieve when we combine science, math, and engineering. It makes us rethink history. It makes us appreciate the depth of knowledge that existed in the ancient world. It shows us that many of the fundamental ideas in mechanics and astronomy were already understood thousands of years ago. It really is one of the most amazing artifacts ever discovered.